Today's sponsor is Ava. Did you start trying for a baby thinking that ovulation was your one and only chance each cycle? It's not. In fact, there are 6 days a cycle when it's possible to conceive, the 5 leading up to ovulation and the day of ovulation itself. So how can you make use of that fertile window when you don't even know you're in it? That is when Ava comes in. Ava is a sensor bracelet that detects subtle changes in your vital signs that correspond with the opening and closing of the fertile window. All you have to do is wear Ava while you sleep and sync to the app in the morning to see 5 of those fertile days as they're happening. And right now, it is $20 off for the Sisters-in-Law listeners. Just use the code AVASISTERS at avawoman.com. Once again, use the code AVASISTERS or AVASISTERS at avawoman.com. Welcome to episode 203 of the Sisters-in-Law podcast. After being diagnosed with PCOS or polycystic ovarian syndrome and having her thyroid removed, today's guest knew there would be challenges to becoming a mother. Without trying, Sasha Palin was able to get pregnant. Unfortunately, at 7 weeks, she began spotting and then miscarried at 9 weeks. Sasha did not receive favorable care as a result of her miscarriage, no sympathy, being brushed off, and no one there to explain exactly what was happening to her body. She felt alone. In this episode, Sasha takes us back to those moments of pain of miscarrying at home. She shares what PCOS and thyroid removal is and the miracle conception that she had, and how she researched and learned how to be an advocate for herself and is now becoming a doula with Sisters-in-Law. This episode is for you to listen to if you've experienced not being listened to or acknowledged during childbirth, including miscarriage. This episode is for you to listen to if you're interested in becoming a Sisters-in-Law doula. Here is Sasha Palin.
All right. Welcome, Sasha, to the podcast.
Thank you.
I would love for you to share a little bit about yourself and what you do.
All right. Well, I live in North Jersey. I'm actually a corporate event planner for one of the major Amazon companies. That's what I do on my full time. Right now, I'm actually finishing up my birth and bereavement course with Sisters-in-Law and actually launching doula services starting tomorrow, which is the anniversary of my miscarriage. So it's actually really full circle that I'm able to have this conversation with you today.
And I love the full circle moment of you actually sharing your story here, but also taking the course to really deep dive and be willing to be a vessel to help others. So take us back on your journey to motherhood and share with us your lost story.
Sure. So I was not trying to get pregnant, it happens, but I was very excited because I have a love of children. I actually was a nanny for several years, and even still sometimes when I don't have anything going on, I look for someone's kid to, take for a little while. So I was really excited. I was nervous, scared, find out that I was pregnant, but I was ready to go. I actually have PCOS. And I also have no thyroid. I had a complete thyroidectomy a few years ago. So, technically I'm considered high risk. So I was supposed to be taken seriously, as you'll find, just through time, I realized that there's such a terrible way in how they treat women, which is really how I got into even wanting to help women. So at the time I was nannying. I wasn't working full time. I was nannying full time. So I had Medicaid. So being high risk, I wasn't able to go back to my private OB because she didn't take Medicaid. So I found myself having to search for, a doctor in the area that was able to care for me. However, having Medicaid, you actually end up having to just kind of go to a general clinic. You don't get to see the same doctor all the time. So I had a pretty easy pregnancy for about the first 7 weeks. The only thing I had was honestly, I was just really tired. That's what was the tell for me, which I actually thought that something was wrong with my thyroid medication. At no point did I actually think I was pregnant. So when I did find out, I was like, what? When I took the test, it was actually a digital test and I didn't realize it. So when I looked at it, it said yes. And I said, yes, what? Everything was fine up until I hit about 7 weeks, almost 8 weeks. I started spotting. So I did, of course, go to the hospital. I did at that point hear the heartbeat. Baby was good. Baby was growing. And I was just told to go home, that it was normal. And, if it got worse, just continue to follow up. So I actually was at the hospital about every couple days for about 2 weeks because I just kept spotting and I was just scared. I didn't know what was going on. And, you're just neurotic at that point. You just keep seeing blood. It doesn't matter how normal they say it is. It doesn't feel normal. Every time I would go to the hospital, they would tell me, everything is fine. The baby was good. I would see the baby. The baby was growing fine. There was a heartbeat, so a strong heartbeat. So I just assumed everything was fine. When I would go to follow up at the doctor, again, I would have to see a different doctor every time. So I would have to go back and explain everything, which was just really frustrating. And on Valentine's Day, I announced my pregnancy. So again, very interesting, that this is all happening for us this weekend, which is really nice, a nice way to commemorate it. And so the 14th, I was good, still spotting, but I'm like, okay, this is just what it is. I obviously went into overdrive looking things up online, and I was like, oh, so many women have bled through pregnancies or for the majority of a pregnancy and have delivered with no complications. So I thought I was okay. The 15th, I woke up and I was spotting heavier. So I'll backtrack because I forgot an important piece. A few days before I miscarried, I was told that they were going to give me vaginal progesterone, because I was on oral progesterone. I guess it wasn't enough. So they were going to put me on vaginal progesterone. I was going back and forth with the insurance, trying to get them to, speed it up so that I can get it. At no point did anybody ever just tell me pay for it. You may end up having to pay for vaginal progesterone anyway, because I ended up finding out that most insurance doesn't really cover vaginal progesterone. So me fighting with the insurance at that point didn't really make a difference. So on the 15th, I was spotting heavier and I was cramping, which I hadn't been before. And then I went to the bathroom and I had a big clot. And at that point, I noticed that there was what looked like tissue, which is what they told me to look out for. So I called my mom. My boyfriend at the time was working. So I called my mom and she was at the doctor. So she's like, do you want me to go right now? I can leave. I said, no, because if something's happening, it already happened, right? Like we can't do anything if I'm miscarrying. And if I'm not, then it doesn't matter, right? So she ends up taking about an hour. She picks me up. We go to the hospital, and that's just what it was. They, of course, did blood work and everything, and the nurse came in and she mistakenly told me what my HCG levels were. And I already knew that at that point they were dropping. So when I told her what they were a couple of days prior when I was at the hospital, she was like, no, maybe I'm reading wrong, and I guess she realized like, oh crap, like I messed up. I shouldn't have said anything. So I tell my mom, and my mom is not familiar with, miscarriages. So I said, Mom, this is not good. My levels are dropping. And she said, well, maybe it's okay. Well, maybe, the numbers can go up. And I said, no, once they start dropping, that's it. So they didn't confirm it to me right away. It took about another like 30, 40 minutes. And the nurse came in and she was stumbling over her words. And I'm kind of very matter of fact about everything. So I just was like, am I miscarrying or not? Because I was just so, I was just so consuming those last few weeks, just thinking that the worst was going to happen and we were finally there. So I said, what's happening? So she said, unfortunately you're miscarrying. I said, all right. and she stepped out. I called my boyfriend. My mom came to, hug me. And then once my mom came to hug me, that's when I lost it. So nothing happened after that. They told me, go home, and I didn't know what to expect. So of course I go home. I'm hysterical. My mom gave me Benadryl. My boyfriend wanted to come over. I was actually really angry at that point. I took it out on him. So I was like, you don't have to worry about me anymore. You don't, don't worry about it. This is done. Mind you, we've been together for a really long time. So I don't know why I thought that, that was going to be the end of it, or that that's what he wanted. So I told him, forget it. So my mom gave me something to put me to sleep, which didn't work. And again, I didn't know what to expect. So that was on a Thursday. And the Friday morning, they called me from the doctor's office and they said, well, we have good news. The progesterone was approved. And I said, well, I miscarried last night. And I hung up the phone because I was pretty pissed at that point. And that was on a Thursday. And I actually, again, not knowing what's happening, you don't really think about the fact that you have to actually birth a baby, right? Because they didn't offer me a DNC, which eventually I also realized that I went to a Catholic hospital and they're not going to offer you a DNC because that's considered an abortion. So I kind of was just sent home and not given any instructions or, information on what was going to happen. So about 4 days later, I couldn't sleep. I was in a lot of pain. I couldn't close my legs. I didn't know what was happening. And then that next morning when I went to go use the bathroom, I heard a plop. So when I looked in the toilet, I saw the fetus, and I was 9 weeks at that point, a little over 9 weeks. So as soon as I saw it, I knew exactly what it was, in the sack and everything. And then I just kind of stared at it, and then there was just a lot of blood. So I called for my mom, but by the time my mom came in, you couldn't see it. And I didn't want to go in to dig for it. So I just ended up flushing it. And that was pretty much it. That was just how it ended. So that was really traumatic. And every period since then, it's going to be 3 years tomorrow, is still a trigger, because even like my regular period or any blood clots, I kind of freeze. And I'm like, I have to remind myself, like, Sasha, this is okay. Like, you're not pregnant. This is normal. So 3 years later, I still struggle with that. But that's basically the whole story.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your experience. I would love for you to dive deep into like what were the next steps after you flushed it. Did you end up going back to the hospital at some point, or go back and follow up with your doctor or a doctor?
I did have my ultrasound pre-scheduled, like the viability one. So I kept that and I just used it to go follow up that way at the hospital. So they just did a regular ultrasound, and no follow up ever again with any doctor. They never checked up on me. They never called. It was very lonely because I didn't know what to expect. And I do have friends and family who have been through it, but everybody's experience is so different that you can't really just, if you go by what everybody else has been through, you're going to go crazy because everybody's experience is different. So I just kind of left it alone. And then I just scheduled the regular like OB appointment for months later, which at that point I was working back in corporate. So I did have my private insurance, and I went back to my original OB at that point. And I mean, that was kind of it.
Yeah. So talk to us about just how your healing process was from then to really now. You've gone through a transformation where you've gotten to a place now you want to help other women who are going through loss, infertility, or just through their pregnancy and postpartum period. So tell us how your healing journey has been.
It was really rough at the beginning because it wasn't a secret, right? It wasn't a secret pregnancy. I wasn't ashamed of it or anything. So people did know that I was pregnant. And of course, I announced it one day and the next day it's over. So that in itself was tough because I had to now go backwards and tell all these people that I had already told, like, hey, I just miscarried, but please don't reach out because I don't want to talk about it right now. So that was tough. My relationship was strengthened at that point because we were really leaning on each other to kind of get through it. And again, I was really angry, so I took out a lot of my emotions on him. But what I ended up realizing was that the whole taboo, don't talk about your pregnancy until you're 3 months, and nobody has to know that you had a miscarriage. I actually got that a lot from my mom. So my mom and I ended up having like huge arguments throughout my healing process because I was like, leave me alone. Like, I want to talk about it. This is how I can get it out. So we would go back and forth with that a lot because she didn't understand why I felt like I just needed to talk about it. And it wasn't, you don't do it for pity. You just do it because you want to talk about it. You want to share this experience that you've been through. And it didn't seem fair that because it was a miscarriage that you can't talk about it. So I did end up going to therapy. And now looking back, it was awesome because yes, I did have a way to talk about it. But now that I even, again, almost 3 years later, just learned about the fact that there is a birth and bereavement doula, I would have much rather have gone to someone that would have understood it versus just going to a traditional therapist that kind of just let me vent and didn't really provide too much support. It was just good to talk about it, but it helped. I did that for a little while, and then I just, got more comfortable talking about it. And whoever it made uncomfortable, it made uncomfortable. That's not my problem. I was pregnant. I lost the pregnancy. I lost a child. So you guys have to get over it. If you don't want to hear it, then it's not like I'm always talking about it. But if it comes up, I'm not going to, not say, yeah, I had a miscarriage, or yeah, when I was pregnant, because it makes people uneasy, and that's kind of why I got into wanting to help women, because you shouldn't be ashamed to announce your pregnancy at any point, because you're either pregnant or you're not, right? It doesn't matter if you're 6 weeks or 9 months, you're either pregnant or you're not pregnant. So, and something we know something can happen at any point. So why not celebrate it while you're happy about it and while you're actually able to? So just in seeing how it's treated in the community, I'm Hispanic. So in the Latino community, it's very much like, don't talk about it. Nobody has to know. And then just the lack of resources and information that I was given. I didn't realize that me going to one of my local hospitals, it being a Catholic hospital, I was not going to be given the option to have a DNC. I didn't even know exactly what that was. Maybe I would have wanted it. Maybe I would have wanted to have a DNC versus the unknown, which was the latter, right? Me delivering at home in a toilet. And also just the lack of education. The fact is that so many women rely on public insurance, Medicaid and government insurance, and to not be treated the same way as you would be if you have private insurance, and not to be given the right information. It really sucked, because I was like, this feels like it could have been prevented. I feel very strongly like that could have been avoided, right? And yes, everything happens for a reason. So, had that not happened, I wouldn't be stepping into this new doula venture. But you still look back and you're like, man, like we could have done something to maybe prevent it. And even as I look back and look at the documents that were given to me from the hospital at that point, I found out I had a hematoma. Nobody ever explained that to me. It was just on the reports after I'd leave the hospital. So I was left to do a lot of research on my own. No doctors were talking to me about it. So that's why now I'm just like, yeah, we have to talk about this. Like, people need to know, because even if you don't go through it yourself, somebody who has or who will, unfortunately. And education should be available. We should have resources out there that are not so taboo for people to feel ashamed. Like, you should just know about it. We hear so much about pregnancy and just going full term and a healthy baby, but what if that's not the case? So that's kind of just been my healing in general, has been through a lot of education and educating myself. so that I can hopefully help other people in general.
Today's sponsor is Ava Woman. Did you start trying for a baby thinking that ovulation day was your one and only chance each cycle? It's not. In fact, there are 6 days a cycle when it's possible to conceive, the 5 leading up to ovulation and the day of ovulation itself. So how can you make use of that full fertile window when you don't even know you're in it? This is where Ava comes in. It's a sensor bracelet that detects subtle changes in your vital signs that correspond with the opening and closing of the fertile window. All you have to do is wear Ava while you sleep and sync the app in the morning to see 5 of those fertile days as they're happening. Ava is better than other methods because LH test can only tell you 1 or 2 fertile days. Taking your temperature only lets you know after you've ovulated, so it's not helpful in real time. And period tracker apps only guesstimate your fertility based on genetic averages. Plus, Ava's technology has been clearly tested and cleared by the FDA. So if you're trying to get pregnant, remember, you've got more than just ovulation day to play with. Let Ava tell you your best 5 days to conceive. And right now, it is $20 off for Sisters in Loss listeners. Just use the code AVASisters at avawomen.com. That is AVASISTERS, AVASisters at avawomen.com.
Yes, and I absolutely love that you got to a place where you knew that there was more to it and no one should struggle, whether they're on Medicaid or whether they have private insurance. So I would love for you to just share about your journey to becoming a doula, taking the course and now launching this new business, and then share with us, what areas you're serving and what we can look forward to.
Oh, yeah, it's really exciting. So, the journey doesn't end just because your pregnancy ends. So I'm constantly looking for accounts and things to follow and ways to learn. So I actually followed Arden Cartret a long time ago. And she posted that she was doing this. And I was like, what is this? So when I looked it up, I was like, I want to do this. So it was like a no-brainer. I kind of saw it, and like 2 weeks later, I think I registered for the course. So that was just kind of, why am I not doing this already? So that's been really interesting, learning a lot of different things. The materials are so awesome. And then, of course, it leads you into like a rabbit hole of just wanting to continue to learn more. So I'm launching tomorrow, again, the anniversary of my miscarriage. I always like to do something on that day. Usually that's traveling, but of course that can't happen. So it was good timing that we're not able to travel really. So I'm launching this, and a big part of it is also spiritual. I did, and looking for ways and healing, like what is the right way to heal? It's very different for everybody. So I did turn a lot to my spirituality and what do people do? How do people handle this? So I actually created a network. I have a few friends who are into Reiki and spiritualists and things like that. So I actually am creating this network of women of color who are going to be performing or offering different types of services like womb healing, which is, something you can do pre-pregnancy or after a loss, just to kind of clear the energy in that space. And, the womb is just, that's our portal, right? So womb healing and spiritual therapy. And of course, those are the services that they'll be offering. But what I'll be doing is obviously a lot of virtual doula support. I'm not sticking strictly to bereavement, but that is what I want to focus on. So I'm really looking forward to doing like live sessions and things that are affordable for people, because again, I'm looking at a community that may be just dealing with financial issues, especially right now. And it's not fair that these resources are not given to them through their providers most of the time. They have to find it, right? So just looking at ways that I can be of service to different women and and family. So I'm really hoping to even do support sessions for people who want to learn, like, how do I support somebody who's going through a loss? Because people don't always know, most of the time anyway, how to be there for someone who's been through a pregnancy loss. You know, they say the craziest things. So, you know, what do I say to them? Do I gift them anything? How do I talk to them? How do I listen? So that's kind of what the goal is. And I mean, I have a lot of really big ideas, but for right now, I kind of just want to open up conversation.
Yes, and shout out to Arden, the miscarriage doula, for letting you know about the course and you signing on just off of her trust. And she's doing amazing things with helping people navigate this journey and parenting after loss as well. So thank you so much. So I would love for you to just leave us with some tools or resources that you've used to really help you navigate this journey, and share with us kind of what's your next steps on your journey to parenthood.
As far as tools and resources, I will say talking to people helps, even if it's not a traditional therapist or a psychologist or whatever. You know, you'll find someone, even if it sounds crazy, but it's really not. Even if it's a friend on social media that you connect with over the same experience, just talking through it. And if you don't want to, it's fine, because obviously there are people who really just prefer not to. And I know plenty of my friends who have been through it and just, you know, don't want to talk about it. So it's really just personal, and don't feel like however you choose to grieve is wrong, right? Because it's totally personal. And I think that that's what's most important. It's not what other people do to get better. It's what you do. Like, here we are. And I just broke down 10 minutes ago, which I did not think was going to happen. I'm over here like, oh, I'm good. I could talk about this. But, you know, it's real life, and it's still trauma, and it still affects you to an extent. And as much as you don't want it to be all consuming in your life, like, it's still a big part of it. And like Arden and so many other women who have been parenting after loss, like, how do you parent after loss? So that's something that I'm looking forward to, but it's still nerve-wracking. As far as my journey to motherhood now, it's taken me some time to really get to the point where I want to have a baby. And it's not that I never said, you know, I don't want to do it anymore. It was just timing. There's so much anxiety leading to a possible pregnancy after a loss that I feel like I've been stripped from that, like, excitement of, like, you know, your first pregnancy, and your freaking first pregnancy ends like that. And then it's like, oh no. So I don't know. I think I'm ready at this point. So it's been 3 years, and some people wait less, some people wait more. But I think at this point, 3 years later, I'm ready to try. That's really all I can do, right? It's go time. So hopefully soon, I don't know how soon, but hopefully soon, I'm open to it now.
Awesome. So I would love for you to leave our listeners with some encouraging words as they navigate their journey to parenthood, to motherhood, those who are trying to conceive. What encouraging words can you give them here in 2021?
Take it day by day. And some days you're not happy. Some days you are. When you're happy, really enjoy those moments. Don't think too much about what's going to happen, and just enjoy the moment as it is. So if you are already pregnant, don't worry about what's going to happen tomorrow. Enjoy that pregnancy right this moment. And if you're not, just enjoy the journey to getting to that point. That's really, honestly, just day by day. That's all it is, no matter what.
Thank you so much, Sasha, for sharing your story on the podcast. Where can our listeners connect with you after this episode? Drop all your details.
I'll be launching. I'm already on the Instagram, but it's at La Lune Doula, which is LALUNE Doula. So I'll be there making some fun announcements tomorrow, and moving forward, the services will be open. The website is launching. It is LaLuneDoulaServices.com. And I'm again at La Lune Doula on Instagram. I'm controlling the Instagram. So, I'm really open to conversation and feedback. So if there's something that's there that you just want more information on, or something you don't see or don't understand, reach out. I'm very approachable. I'm really looking forward to building a community and really educating. I'm very excited. And thank you for offering these courses for us, because I would have never known, honestly.
Yes, no, also, I'm so happy that you took the course and you are launching your services, and you service the Northern New Jersey area, right?
Yes, Northern New Jersey, New York, and really
virtually.
Anywhere. Yeah, because virtually, but I'm located in North Jersey, right next to Manhattan.
Nice. Awesome. This was a pleasure. Thank you so much again, Sasha, for being on the podcast and sharing your story with us. I know that the ladies listening, especially my Latinx folks, will definitely understand and benefit from it. So thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. There are so many ways to connect with the Sisters-in-Loss community. Join our monthly support group, our Sisters-in-Loss Healing Collective at sistersinlosshealing.com. Join our free Facebook group at sistersinloss.com/community, or text sisters to 797979 to download your free Journal to Healing ebook. That is sisters to 797979 to download your free Journal to Healing ebook. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Sisters in Loss, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Yeah, girl, we on YouTube at Sisters in Loss TV. We love you for listening. Keep the faith. Until next time, this is Erica, and I'll talk to you soon.